Welcome to What Works, where nonprofit leaders share real stories about what makes impact possible and their organizations thrive. I'm your host, Marla Moody. I'm a transformational coach with more than 3 decades of experience as a nonprofit leader. I have the passion to see nonprofits thrive. Today's conversation will focus on sustainability, finances, and self care, and how leaders build organizations that will last without sacrificing themselves in the process of that whole thing. My guest today is Vanessa Volz. She's the president and CEO of Sojourner House, based in Rhode Island, and she's grown the organization to a $12 million agency, serving survivors across the state of Rhode Island while leading with clarity, compassion, and purpose. Get ready. Vanessa is here to show us what works. Welcome, Vanessa.
Hi, Marla. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
You're welcome. Well, to get started and get people introduced to your voice, would you just share a little bit about yourself? And I'd love to hear more about the Sojourn House.
Absolutely. So, yes, my name is Vanessa Volz, and I'm the president and CEO of Sojourner House. We're a victim services agency in Rhode Island. We've become a statewide agency. Of course, Rhode Island, for those of you not familiar, with this New England state, we are a tiny state. So I think we're 40 by 50 miles in any direction. So we're a fairly small community. However, we do provide services across the state. I've been with the agency, it'll be 15 years next month in February. During that time, I have been able to work with an incredible team and very supportive board members to grow and scale our operations to really be more impactful. When I started with the agency in 2011, we were just this really small grassroots, lots of heart, lots of passion, but a staff of 11 and our organizational budget with less than $1 million a year. And fast forward to where we are now, we have built out a wide variety of supportive services, but also housing options. And that's really where we began to find a sweet spot. So we have developed a supportive housing program. We've developed a housing development program. So we're actually a housing developer and we purchase and rehab and then lease properties to our clients. We've actually even started to do some policy work because obviously to affect systemic change, it's important to have policies that are reflective of the work that needs to be done. So we've been doing some legislative and policy work at the state level, which has been pretty exciting. So that's all to say that I've been with the agency for almost 15 years, as I said, but every year is a little different. New challenge, new program. It was here throughout COVID, which was extremely challenging to run a direct services organization. I can tell you I was not baking cookies or knitting anything during COVID. I was in overdrive with all of my staff. We were trying to accommodate the just rapid increase of requests for services. And then over the last several months, we have been just kind of on the edge, wondering what's going to happen at the federal level because we are an organization that is largely funded with federal funding. And so we've been trying to do contingency planning and prepare for what appears to be some inevitable cuts to some of our government funding. So there have definitely been some challenges along the way, lots of successes as well. And I can honestly say I love the work that we do. I'm so honored that I get to be part of this team and that I have been part of this team for so long. But at the same time, it is very bittersweet because the issues of domestic and sexual violence are so prevalent, so rampant throughout all of our society that it's clear that we are not going to be able to really eliminate it probably anytime soon. Certainly, I am coming to the realization probably will not happen in my lifetime, if it will happen at all. It's this constant balance of keeping up the energy required to do this work with the reality that we might be pushing this boulder up this hill and it's still rolling back towards us. So That's just a snapshot of who I am, what my organization does. I'm really excited to be on a podcast that is specifically focused on the work that nonprofits do because I'm not sure everyone really understands how challenging and complex this work is.
And you described it well as you layer one thing over the other, that you're not just doing one thing, but you see to serve your community well takes so many things. I'm curious real quick with 2025 being an interesting year, both from a funding level to a stress level. What kind of difference did you notice in light of an uptick or of just the people that you're serving? Did you notice any difference with the level of 2025?
So we noticed a couple things in 2025. Most recently, folks might remember there was the government shutdown in the fall, and then there was the threat of SNAP benefits being cut off. So we saw a very dramatic increase for requests for help in October, towards the end of October, as many of our clients probably thought their SNAP benefits were going to be terminated. And we are not a food pantry. I mean, we can occasionally help some clients, usually the ones in our housing program, with food, but we certainly do not have an endless supply of resources to provide food. So that just demonstrates what a massive issue this was to our residents. We're very proud of the fact that we serve all kinds of victims. We often talk about how abuse doesn't discriminate, it affects all socioeconomic, racial, ethnic backgrounds. And so we have worked with different immigrant populations during our time, and we actually saw, to a certain extent, a decrease in requests from victims from that community for various reasons that we could probably surmise why that might be the case. But I would say, in general, when I look at the last several years of our trajectory, we definitely noticed a great increase of requests for help during COVID, and we pretty much have seen that same level stay in place since 2020. Part of that was we experienced rapid growth during the pandemic, so we were able to bring on more staff and offer more resources. So that leads to more referrals, but I think it really also demonstrates the incredible need that there is, and the fact that we are providing affordable housing, we provide rental subsidies, we have apartments for rent. Again, just really demonstrates the number of people who need affordable housing and cannot find it. We often are in a situation where we have rental subsidies we could spend, and we can't always find units to rent because it's such a competitive housing market. That's actually the reason why we became a housing developer several years ago, because we wanted to be part of the solution of creating more affordable housing. But in summary, I think there's great need. I think there's been great need for quite some time. And I think moving forward, we're going to continue to see great need from vulnerable populations.
Yeah, very well said. Do you partner with other for-profit organizations that are in that sector?
In the housing sector?
Yeah.
A little bit. So most of the most of the housing development work we've done is because we've been able to secure grants, mostly federal grants, um, and a decent number of corporate grants. But I would say, in terms of private housing developers, we do have some people who volunteer. We have a real estate committee, we have a board of directors. So we do have some expertise that's shared in that way. That's probably the most direct way that we're seeing support from private housing developers. I will say this too: Sojourner House leases a number of apartments, and so we work with a variety of different developers and property managers, and we definitely have established some partners that will let us know when they have units available, or who see us as a partner. Or we've had a few developers who've wanted to initiate a new development, and we sign on as letter of support. We would potentially place clients in this development. So I think there are a couple different ways we have partnered.
You talked about how Sojourner House has grown from under 1 million to 12 million as a statewide agency. When you look back, What shifted first? Like, was it your leadership? Was it the systems, the culture? What had to lead to make that happen?
That's a great question. I mean, I think a lot of things happened at the same time. When I became the director here at Sojourner House, there had been a period of a couple years where there had not been consistent leadership. And there had really been a struggle to find a strong executive director. So I think when I was able to come in place and be a stable presence in the organization, I think that was a positive impact on the staff. I think it definitely demonstrated to our funders and the community that we were here to stay with our doors wide open. So I think that started to lead to additional opportunities. But I also think we really need to give credit to the staff and then the board for supporting the decisions to diversify our programmatic offerings. When I became the director at Sojourner House, we were focused primarily on crisis intervention. So we had a hotline, we had an emergency shelter, we provided some basic needs, but we weren't really thinking long term about the needs of survivors. And once we started to recognize that that was a need, that, our clients would come to us in crisis, and then when their crisis stabilized, they wouldn't have anywhere to go. And who wants to live in a shelter long term? I think understanding the barriers that our clients were experiencing and then trying to find solutions to provide them with the support that they needed was really important. The other thing, I mean, kind of to your point about leadership, I'd never been an executive director before, but I was very, very passionate about taking this job. At the time, I described it as my dream job. It was, I couldn't imagine. I mean, if someone had said to me, "What's your dream job?" at the time that I got this, it probably would have been something like this. So I was just so enthralled with the possibility of what this agency could do, and I really did think big. I came into this agency, it was very small. I saw potential for us to do something bigger. And so I think having that vision is really important. And then I think setting really big goals. I mean, I think I'm known even in the fundraising space to kind of set these big audacious goals. And I'm always of the opinion, set a big goal and you may not reach it. You might, but if you don't set the big goal, you're not going to come anywhere near it. And if you set a lower goal, you're probably not going to exceed it because most people are, they reach for whatever goal it is. And then they're like, oh, I met my goal. So I've become a fan of setting big goals, and I like to achieve goals. So to me, it keeps the work stimulating. And the reality is there is such great need. And again, I think this is why in the nonprofit world, you see such alignment with passion and purpose. So many of us go into this work because we care so deeply about the mission. And I care so deeply about the mission that it motivates me to want to do more, right? When I think about how we had an emergency shelter, and that was really important. That kept people safe temporarily. But then it's like, well, how do we keep people safe permanently? Right? Like, how do we work towards longer term solutions for our clients? And just having that commitment, having that interest, having that desire to continuously make the organization more effective, again, provides that motivation and that inspiration to want to do more.
Yeah. That word commitment, I wanted to underline because in some ways, especially when it comes from a fundraising and getting donors, the getting people out, that emergency piece is a little more sexy. Like I'm assuming might be a little easier to raise funds for. And getting people out of harm's way permanently takes so much more thought and effort and programming, a real commitment to be able to do that. How do you help people get that vision for not just doing that short term temporary, but really building in place something that you can see long term success with these people?
Not sure. I'm not sure it's easy to get people to see the vision. I think what I've tried to do during my time here is identify who are the people who have that vision. And then I try to get them to work at Sojourner House. And I think the people who are happiest at this agency have that longer term vision. I really think we're trying to look at longer term solutions. We're not just trying to put a band-aid on an immediate issue. We're trying to go more to the root of like what's the real problem here and how can we get to that so that the client doesn't need to rely on us, right? I didn't talk really about what I did before I came to Sojourner House, but before I came to Sojourner House, I was an attorney at a nonprofit and I did civil rights disability discrimination work. And I did a lot of housing defense work. So I would represent clients who had disabilities and were at risk of being evicted or, an eviction notice had been filed against them. I practiced law long enough, almost 5 years, and I started to see the same clients at risk of eviction. And I started to represent the same clients. And I was not excited about that. I was always excited to help people and to represent them and do what I could to ensure that they stayed safely housed. But I started to notice the same people and I started to recognize like there was only so much, even as an attorney, that I could do in this situation to defend them so that they could stay in their housing. And so, that's always stuck with me. And I feel again so honored and grateful that I'm at an organization where I've been able to really develop longer term solutions because I often say we don't want our clients to have to come back to us. I mean, we're here if they do, and there are many reasons why someone might have to come back to us, and that, of course, is something that happens, and we're here. But we really want to help our clients get to the point where they're self-sufficient, they have the resources they need, they've healed from their trauma, and they can move on with their lives, and they can raise their children if they have them, and not necessarily need us to support them. And when that does happen, when we do have those success stories, I mean, there's nothing better than that.
How do you find quality talent and how do you keep quality talent?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's tough. It's been tough ever since the pandemic. I think a lot of people have opted out of nonprofit social service work for various reasons. And what I've seen over the years is a lot of people think they want to do this kind of work, especially victim service work. We interview a lot of people that seem very passionate and excited about the work, but then once they encounter the reality of the day to day, hearing the stories, working with the clients who continue to have so many challenges and barriers. I mean, that really can get a lot of people down and can affect people very negatively. On the flip side, when you do hire people who are able to manage the ups and downs of this work and who are able not to personalize everything that clients experience, they are amazing advocates and they are so, again, committed to the organization. So I mean, fortunately, at Sojourner House, there are a number of staff members who have been with the agency for over a decade. These are people doing direct services work, and it's really hard work what they're doing, but they are very committed. They've learned how to establish boundaries between work and the rest of their life. It's beneficial for all of us because someone who's been with us that long has certain skills and resources that are really helpful to the clients we're trying to serve. On the flip side, certainly we've hired people that just realize very quickly that this is just not the job for them. And I just remember this was years ago when we were still kind of small. I remember hiring an advocate, someone who was supposed to work directly with clients. And she was so compassionate, just so empathetic. And I just don't think she was prepared to hear story after story after story. And so she did resign just a few months into the job. And this was before I even had an HR director. So I did the exit interview with her. And I said, do you have another job? Are you moving on to something else? And she said, yes. She said, I'm doing data entry at an office. She said, I don't have to talk to anyone. I don't have to hear their story. I understood where she was coming from. I was like, yeah, if that's the kind of job you need and want, then this is not the place for you. There is way too much chaos, way too much messiness. There's a lot of talk in the nonprofit world. I don't know if you're familiar with Joan Gary. She talks about how nonprofits are messy. That really resonates with me. This work is it's just messy. There's no way around it.
It's messy because you're working with people and you're working with the mess of the people. Like, a lot of us can hide our mess. We all have it. A lot of us can hide it. You're working in a place where you're helping people you know, get the broom in the dustpan and sort it out. So, really, really wise to see that not everybody's bent for this. What does self-care look like for you personally? And what do you encourage your staff to do in light of self-care?
Yeah, so self-care, what does it mean to me? I would be the first to say I'm not always great at having boundaries, not always. I tend to probably work more than I should, but it's sometimes hard when you care so much about the mission to just say, "Oh, it's 5 o'clock. I will go home." That very rarely happens. That said, I have been here for a while, and in order to still be here and still have the energy I have learned, yes, I need certain boundaries. There are a few habits that I really try to implement, like every morning I wake up and I walk my 2 dogs with my husband, and, like, we do 3 miles together, so it takes a while, but I'm committed to doing that walk every morning. Just it puts me in the right frame of mind, gets some exercise, and conversely, I also have a very dedicated, yoga practice, and so I practice yoga, probably 5 or 6 days a week, almost daily. And it's one of those things where I don't dread it's not like, "Oh, I have to go work out or I have to go to yoga." It's not no, I mean, this is my time with, like, the one time of the day where I can be alone with my thoughts. I don't have to make any decisions. I don't have to worry about consequences of decisions. I don't have to worry about the client that we couldn't house. And I also really try to utilize my time off. And I've learned over the years I have to plan for my time away. I can't just take time off and say like, "Oh, I'm going to take a staycation and, sleep in and do what I want at home." I get a little too antsy. It's too easy to check my email. So when I take time off, I really try to go somewhere. And again, because I do have this yoga practice, I've over the last several years really started going on different yoga retreats to different parts of the country, yoga trainings, just giving myself some structure even on my vacation time, but in a different way. Um, and that's been really beneficial for me. Like I'm such a doer, I'm always that person who has the checklist and needs to feel at the end of the day like I checked X, Y, and Z off. So even on my time off, it's really helpful for me to feel like, okay, I'm at this yoga retreat and we had 2 classes and we had a philosophy discussion and I need to know that I feel like I spent my time well. For myself, it's been really helpful to have structured time off, to make the time for time off, and then in order for me to take it, for it to be structured. And then in terms of my team, we talk a lot about the importance of taking time off. So we really try to create a culture where people don't feel bad. We never make people feel bad for taking time off. We provide a very generous paid time off policy. I mean, if anything, some staff members, because the longer you're here, the more time off you earn. So if anything, some of our staff members have a hard time using all their time off. But we really talk a lot about using your time, even sick time. I mean, if there's a day where you just like you're not feeling it, take a sick day, right? I say this a lot. I would rather someone just take the day off, recharge, and then come back refreshed. Don't try to suffer through what's going to be a bad day. So I think there's a lot of understanding around that. But I mean, self care can only go so far. and I'm acutely aware of the vicarious trauma that a lot of our case managers and advocates probably experience working with the individuals and families who have gone through so much. So we do have a counseling program. We do provide clinical supervision to our staff. We talk a lot about training, providing resources to our staff so that they can feel equipped to do the job that they're doing because it's a really hard job.
Is the training do you do that in the context of, like, teams or groups, or are those more individual trainings for people?
We definitely have trainings for different teams around their program, but then there are also individual opportunities. Someone's really interested in a specific topic. We're pretty encouraging of them to explore that area. So,
Yeah,
and then we also, as an agency, we organize training for the staff and we'll bring in speakers and people from other agencies to help provide training on areas that are of benefit to the staff.
beautiful. I like that you use the word boundaries. I used to use the word work-life balance, and I'm not sure that that is the best philosophy for nonprofits
Mm.
because we're doing it for a passion that is not just a paycheck. And yet if we don't have boundaries, if there's not the I know myself well enough that I need structured time away versus whatever. So boundaries, I want to just emphasize that because when people are anybody, if we're struggling with burnout, if we're struggling with self-care, those types of things, go what do I need to put in place in order to make that happen? And I feel like that's just much healthier definition of um a healthy lifestyle than just like work-life balance, which can feel pretty nebulous or make you feel guilty.
Yeah, I stopped using that term. It's funny you bring that up because I struggled with that term for so long because I felt horrible. I felt like I have zero work-life balance. It used to be a question people would ask me like, "Oh, how's your work-life balance?" I would always feel like, "Oh, it's not great." It never really resonated with me. I was like, "What is this concept of work-life balance?" Like, there's no day where I can just like at 5 o'clock say, "Oh, okay, I'm done for the day." If I do physically leave at 5, there's no way my brain has turned off at 5.
You're
I'm
right.
not entering data in an office for 8 hours a day. So I can't let go that way. Um, and that is why boundaries is really a concept that appeals to me and just it embodies what I experience because I have set up certain boundaries. Another example is on Friday night, I go to dinner with my husband. Like we have carved out the time. No one has to cook. We go out. And I mean, it has to take like a multimillionaire donor to drag me away from my dinner on Friday night with my husband. Like, there has to be a like a really big, compelling reason because that is set aside for us for my marriage. I think it's important to have certain boundaries, certain non-negotiables, and and that's a better framework for the field that we're in.
You use the word rock. I want to underscore that too. What are those rocks that we have in our life that are non-negotiables so that we keep that health? You wouldn't be in this role for 15 years had there not be something of that. Because really, as a president and CEO, there's no way to have like this 9 to 5 job. It just doesn't exist. But having those rocks to say, dinner with my husband's a non-negotiable, going on this walk, doing yoga, getting structured time away. So highlighting that again, because if there's anybody that says, I can't afford to do this, you're not going to last long.
Unfortunately, I see that happen with colleagues. This
Hmm.
work is not for everyone. This work is really hard and often thankless. And I mean, as the president and CEO or executive director, very few people really understand everything that you're doing. Your board has a small snapshot, and some of your senior team members have another snapshot. Some of the funders kind of get it, but like no one really understands everything going on. Maybe your assistant. I do have an assistant, and she is phenomenal, and she probably understands better than anyone what I have going on. But very few people really kind of understand the breadth of what you deal with in this position, which is a double-edged sword because I mean, I love it. I love the fact that I'm like looking at budgets and dealing with a personnel issue and dealing with a funding issue and, planning this program. Like, I mean, that can all happen in one day, right? So it's like I'm always intellectually stimulated and always thinking about what's next and what's going on. Um, but it's a lot. I think it tires out a lot of people, understandably so.
Well, thanks for being a good example of that. I've been actually thinking through putting uh, a network together, especially of executive women, because really there are things that people don't understand and it wouldn't be appropriate for people to understand, but there's a loneliness to that
Mm,
at times when you hold things and you want to, you're doing it, but there is a little bit of an isolation aspect there too. I don't know if
ab
you sense
no,
that.
I'm really glad you said that. I mean, that is something I have definitely experienced. The, yeah, isolation is a good word for it. Loneliness. I still have an image from COVID, probably end of 2020, so before vaccines, um, just feeling so deflated, just feeling like I'm trying so hard to make this agency work and just everything feels like it's working against me. And I'm trying to manage the finances, keep everyone safe, bring in some funding to keep the doors open, maintain my own mental health because, like, are we all going to die? There was one night I was there past 5 o'clock. The thought occurred to me, I just want to crawl underneath my desk and stay there. It was so visceral. It was painful. And I just felt like, to your point, I just felt so alone. I felt like no one else really understands. And I do think it's important when I say I feel the loneliness, it's not like I feel resentful that other people don't have that. If anything, I don't want other people to have that burden. Like I don't want my staff to feel what it's like to wonder, like, can we make payroll next week? I don't want to share that. I want to protect them from it. But the result is like, yeah, it does create this like deep feeling of loneliness sometimes.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, and it's true. It's not the resent or whatever, but it's the position you hold. A leader cares for their people, and that's knowing what information to give people and what information isn't appropriate for them to have. Not because they couldn't handle it, it's just not appropriate. So to know that balance and also to say, what does it look like for me to hold that, what is a peer of people that could help me with that, or just feel like, okay, I'm not the only one that feels lonely.
Right. Right. Yes.
So I want to be mindful of our time. If you look forward a year from now, what would you want to see true of what you're doing, and how would you like to see that the same or change?
My goal for this year is to work as much as I can towards sustainability for Sojourner House. I would love it if a year from now, most, if not all, of our programs were still pretty much in the same place. I want to be somewhat realistic that there might have to be some changes, but I'd like to think a year from now, we're still housing close to the number of people that we've been able to house. We still have a clinical program. We still have a legal program. We still have the main programs that we worked so hard to build. I mean, that's what's so stressful too about what's ahead of us is I feel like we've worked so hard this past decade plus to build the agency to where it is. So this year is all about what can we do to make sure we can continue to do what we do.
Well put. It'll be good to see. If you could tell someone listening and they want to be involved, whether that's financially or volunteer, or what are ways that people can contribute to what you guys are doing?
So many different ways. We do have a volunteer program. We provide a pretty comprehensive training to individuals if they want to get involved on the direct services side. We always need help with people to answer our hotline, work at the shelters, work at our drop in center. So there's direct service opportunities. And then, yes, fundraising. We have fundraising committees. We host an annual breakfast every spring. There's a committee for that. We're actually hosting an educational conference this year. There's a committee for that. Certainly, donations. And sometimes people get really creative. They get their employer to help or they organize drives for us. So there are so many different ways that people can help and support us. And we do have a website, sojournerri.org, where there's more information, both about our programs and also about how people can get involved in our work.
I love it where there is more types of ways to do than a lot of times people realize. So I'll definitely make sure we put your website on the show notes. Any last thing before we close up?
No, I just thank you for creating this space to shine some light on the work that nonprofits are doing. Unless you're in this field, I'm not sure people really understand what nonprofits do and how complex many of them are and just how challenging the work really is. So thank you for providing this opportunity.
You're welcome. What I believe is when nonprofits are healthy, communities are healthy. And a canary in the coal mine is when nonprofits begin to not be healthy. It is something about the community of itself.
Mm.
And we are societal change. We call ourselves nonprofit, but we are for the profit of the community. So we are at the core of community change. And uh, I want make sure that that message gets out that this is not charity. This is serving in a way to build others up. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Marla.